everybody should be exit planning all the time. I could walk out and get hit by a bus tonight, right?
Mhm.
My company needs to be set up for success should something like that happen. And so when you start to change the narrative around it and it doesn't become the stigma or a pushing somebody out or an end of something, it becomes an actual continuation. It's a lot easier of a conversation.
All right, we're here. One of us is in a remote location. One of us is not. Happy Monday, the day after the Super Bowl. How we doing, Mandy?
Yes. Amani, I am awesome, but I have to know you are in Seattle the day
Yeah.
after the Seahawks won the Super Bowl. Like what's the vibe? What the airport feel like? Like how I know you're not in Seattle proper, like you're on the outskirts, but like just what's the vibe up there right now?
Vibe is very good. The city, they're pretty happy. I dipped in and then I drove about 70 miles outside the city, but people are very happy wearing their Seahawks gear. Much respect to them. They won, great team. So it's just a happy. I leave on Wednesday when the parade is, so maybe I'll see some more energy by Wednesday too, because they're probably just coming down off of last night.
I love a parade. How fun that you get to be in the city when the parade. Are you leaving before the parade or will you be able to see it at
Yes.
all?
No, I'm leaving. I'm out.
That's a bummer. You stay for the parade. Parades are so fun.
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good without the parade. But anyway,
Paradeless,
anyways,
paradeless.
yes, parade list. What is new? I know we're going to talk at a specific mini, but I know you had a transformative week last week.
Did.
Just share us maybe one quick takeaway before we get to our guests.
Okay, I attended Jesse Itzler's Built to Speak retreat. So he does 4 retreats a year. Think this is the first time he's ever done Built to Speak. And it's all about leveling up your leadership, communication, and professional speaking. And it was cool. There was only 26 of us in the class, and it was 2.5 days of intensive coaching. It felt like a cross between America's Got Talent, Shark Tank, and like American Idol. Like it was like you had prompts, you had to get up on stage. They instantly coached you right after. And the coaching was so valuable. I mean, the coaches were, I mean, Jesse's one of the world's greatest speakers. So he is an awesome coach. He's a great speaker, but he's an awesome coach. But then there was screenwriters and ghostwriters and uh, a woman that started the Body Language Institute. So there was, there was a lot of stagecraft, but there was body language, there was content, storytelling. I mean, it was fabulous. And then the people in the class,
Yes.
everybody had a unique and interesting perspective and story. I mean, I was so inspired by being around the people, and the coaches were awesome, but the people, they just kept me going. So it was transformative. I came back a different lady, and I'm so happy about it. It was really
Right.
really cool. Yeah.
That's great. Can't wait to hear more.
Yeah, we're gonna
And
do a full mini episode about it. Like
we're
I'll
gonna do a
share all
full
the takeaways. Yeah.
I'm ready for that. Talk
Yeah.
to us about our guest for today because we have interesting guests, got lots of good questions. Curious, so talk to us.
I know I have so many questions. I'm so excited. So we have Andrea Steinbrenner on the phone on the show today. She's a military wife. She loves to cook and hike, and she is the CEO of Exit Consulting Group. So Andrea, welcome to the show.
Yes,
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks
virtual
for
round
being
of
here.
applause here. We're
Yes.
virtual applause, so yes, yes. Uh, Mandy, because you have so many questions, I'm gonna toss it over to you because my questions kind of need to come after we learn a little bit more about Andrea.
Okay. Well, yeah, Andrea, I'm excited. The timing to talk to you is perfect because last week when I was at this Built to Speak retreat, I would say probably 25% of the people there either just went through an exit
Mm,
or they were prepping an exit. And so there was a lot of
mm,
talk of exit. And full disclosure, I hadn't even considered or thought about this until the last like 3 or 4 years. And I've had some friends that have exited their company. So can you just explain what the heck do we mean by exiting your company or exiting your business?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for asking the direct upfront question.
Yes, let's get right
So,
to it.
yeah, a lot of times when people think about exiting their company, they're really fixated on liquidity. And
Mhm.
so it's the golf course conversations, it's the dinner table chats, it's the coffee, what's your number? What do you need to retire? And all of that's important, or what do you need to exit even? Liquidity is important. It's how we structure our life and figure out what kind of lifestyle we want and what we want to leave behind. But where we tend to forget to think about as business owners and as doers and as CEOs and founders is the emotional ties that we have to our business, and how
Mhm.
important it is to start to examine those and kind of unravel that ball of yarn that's our business, that all of our emotions are tied around really tightly. And so at ECG, at Exit Consulting Group, we start with the heart work, which is actually the hard work. My two partners and I we're all recovering CFOs and CPAs, so we can get into the numbers, and we do, and we love to financial model and get into data rooms and all those things. But all of that actually becomes a futile exercise if you don't do the hard work, which is the heart work. I say it all the time when I speak and I work with clients. We can always solve for liquidity. It's actually the thing we can solve for. What we can't solve for when it's all said and done is relevancy and legacy.
Mm.
So we think of it a lot like a triangle, and people tend to put liquidity at the top of the triangle, and then that's where we focus. But we can have the perfect deal with the perfect terms and the perfect purchase price and structure, and a lot of times we won't actually get the deal done because we haven't examined those things, like what's my purpose when I'm no longer a business owner? How am I gonna What am I gonna call myself? How do I introduce myself? How does my LinkedIn status change? How does my ability to donate change and how people see me in the community? How does my family look at me different, or my friends? And so we spend a lot of time with business owners in that space first or along the way, because we've supported clients in our prior careers that didn't do it. And us as business owners have gone through failed transactions. And it's probably one of the most devastating things to go through.
Yeah. Well, I think I don't think people are thinking about the heart, right? They're thinking
Mm-mm.
about the money, but as we know, when you're operating based on money only, it normally doesn't work out, right? You've got to put the passion and the heart in it. If you were talking to a business owner today, what are three things business owners can be doing right now to be preparing to exit, even if exiting isn't even for 20 years from now? Like, what are
Yeah.
some prep things that they should be thinking about?
Yeah, it's a great question. So one of the ways we approach starting this colossal thing called succession planning and exit planning and strategy is we break it up into three disciplines. So the first thing we look at is owner readiness. So what we were just talking about. Pick one of the things on the owner readiness flywheel to start working on. Sometimes it is what's your number. That one's easier to solve for and less emotional. So start there. We don't have to start hard. But we talk about what's your purpose, what motivates you, what are you passionate about, and so there's exercises and there's iterative processes and ideation we go through. These aren't things you solve in one meeting, right? These are things you pick up over and over again, and you have to have somebody guiding you and driving you to keep picking it up because it's the first thing to put on the back burner. We look at the second discipline we look at is business readiness. So how ready is your business for you to not be the centrifuge? Doesn't mean you get out of it full on, but if you're the number one rainmaker, the number one executor, the number one relationship driver, the CFO, the janitor, right? What are things that we can start doing to decouple the tactical day-to-day operations from that one or two people and actually have a company that's viable outside of the owner operated model? A lot about how can we start to transition your company from being owner operated to professionally run. And lastly, the market readiness. So that's anything from what are my competitors doing that I need to be thinking about or ignoring because it's not who I am? What is my valuation now? And is it producing a number I can live with? Or what do I need to move that needle? What are economic conditions on a macro and micro level? We've all just experienced tariffs and supply chain and the pandemic. So those are real. So we try to look at all those disciplines collectively, but a lot of times we say, just do something. That's it. Just pick one thing and do something. It's really interesting. I'll go and speak with groups of business owners and I'll ask them, how far do you think you are out from exiting? And it doesn't matter, if they're 10 years or if they're 1 year. Across the board, we get 5 years. And we laugh because 1 year is too close.
Yeah.
And 10 years is way too far out to think about, right? So 5 years feels safe. If I go back and speak to that same exact group of business owners 1 year later, and I ask that question, do you know what they say?
What?
5 years.
Oh.
And then the next year, do you know what they say?
5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
Because it's a safe number where it's still out there, it's still seeable, but you don't have to do anything today.
Yeah.
And so what's fascinating is it's actually one of the number one topics business owners want to talk about. And it's the number one topic they do nothing about.
Well, as you're talking, it's reminding me of a story of a girlfriend of mine was working for a financial advisor for many years. And he was preparing her to take over the business or to leave, just doing a great job at being a mentor. And he ended up giving her his book of business. And he was revered and everybody loved him. And she believed that she was just going to get all of his business.
Right.
But the reality is she had to re-earn that trust and re-earn that business all over again, even though he passed the baton with conviction, right? So I think the question that is swirling in my brain here is like, what relationships as business owners should we be establishing now with that next generation or with potential mentees or with customers? Like, what relationships should we be working on if we intend to succession plan a little bit better?
Yeah. So I'll go a little like esoteric woo-woo for a minute and I'll pull back down to business acumen. Okay. But what it sounds like this individual did very well, the gentleman who passed the book of business, was the first relationship he worked on was with himself. Mm-hmm. And he got himself in a place where he was comfortable to pass the business and it was no longer defining him. And so a lot of times, especially in privately held family operated businesses, we know who the next person in command is, but we have a hard time actually getting out of the way and letting them run it and do it their way, which is different than our way. And we have to be okay with it. So kudos to who this gentleman was. It sounds like, your best friend had a good experience, which means he first worked on himself. So way to go. Way to go, guy. The second one, it's hard to answer like which one, honestly, because it depends on the business model and what you're doing. But we know as business owners which relationships sit inside of our businesses that if we don't pass it, it will hurt the company. Mm-hmm. And so, maybe it's just sitting down and making a list. There's some CEOs who don't touch any customers, right? You own a paperclip manufacturing company and you never talk to the people at Staples and Office Depot. Your salespeople do. But you might be really close with your operator, or you might be really close with someone in the supply chain that you've always gotten the same product from. And so, you need to start there. I think what it actually comes down to is not who, but how and when. And so one thing I think we forget as business owners and as CEOs and founders is we're all replaceable. And from what I know, none of us make it out alive. So we have to start preparing. And I think we get scared of this thing called exit, but really it should be part of a normal conversation we start having early on in our businesses. It shouldn't be something that comes up after decades and everyone's scared to talk about it. Everyone can see us aging. Everyone can see us advancing. Everyone can see our interests changing. It's being brave and bold and transparent to have the honest conversation and letting those next people in. So I think putting it on the table as part of your annual strategic plan is how you start. And then in that planning, you figure out when and who you start to bring into these different conversations.
Yeah, I love this is just like this is one of the annual tasks that you're doing. And then I think people get stuck when they want to get out and they hadn't done the planning from the previous years. And
and they don't.
No,
and they don't know how to approach it. I travel a lot for business, right? And so I play a game with myself. And I'm not always successful when I get back to the office, but I play a game with myself and I say, okay, I've just been out of the office for a day, a week, whatever. What was I doing before I left that someone else started doing just because I was absent? And do I really need to go back and do that thing again? Or can they keep it? And can the company do better by them keeping it? And I was actually inhibiting something because I just liked to do it. Right. And there's a lot of things that we like to do as business owners, and they're probably the things that made us good, but it's not necessarily what we should keep doing in order for our business and our team to grow.
Yeah. Or you think that you're the only person in the world that can do it that way. And you're like, actually, like a lot of people can do this. Like, just get over yourself, right?
It's that relationship with yourself you have to work on.
Yeah.
I kind of want to ask, like a basic question. Like, for us, there's some people out there who have their businesses in their name and they want to exit. So that makes it complicated. So what can people like that do early on to smooth that part of the exit process out? Because that's a common question. Be like, oh, well, I have, whether it's AHR Enterprises or the Amani Experience or Mandy's sales coaching business, like what can we do early on to make the process, once we're ready to exit, smoother?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think it comes down to why you're in the business and what you actually want when and if you exit. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of times people run lifestyle businesses, which are great, and their brand is their name, and that's what makes them great and it gives them credibility. And you don't have to sell your company in order to have a successful exit. If you're running a lifestyle business and it's Mandy's coaching business and she gets to run her life the way she wants, and then one day she's done, a successful exit doesn't mean she transacts. It could be she liquidates. It could be she turns it off, right? And I think there's this stigma out in the marketplace that if we don't sell and we don't sell at the right price, we've not done the good job and been successful. And it's all smokescreen, because a lot of the times when you're figuring out what you should transact and you're talking with your buddies, like it's not even reality. And so one thing we talk about a lot with business owners is setting the right expectations for yourself and knowing what you can live with, not what someone else can or what someone else will know. Because it's kind of like, and I hope there's not a lot of high school and college kids listening to this, there probably aren't, right?
No, but there's a lot of business owners, not a lot of
when you're in that phase of life, you are terrified that if you don't have the perfect grades or the right report card, you're not going to get into the school or the job that you want. And nobody looks at your GPA once you have a job. Like, especially college kids who are so stressed. And I get it. I want to see that hard work and that effort, but I'm not hiring people based on their GPA, right? But it's so ingrained, right? And so we create these narratives inside of the marketplace around exit that it has to look a certain way or you didn't do a good job. And it's just bravado. Yeah. So if your brand is your name and it makes you successful and it lets you run your life the way that you want, great. If you want to transact, if you become a global coaching enterprise, then at some point in time, you actually have a marketing team that will guide you in how to change and adjust that.
Got it. You know what they say at school, because I'm a professor, they say C's get degrees. And so
that was me. I was a C.
Yeah, that makes me think of that. Yeah. When you go through some of the most successful exits that you've worked on or worked with, what are some of the most common characteristics of those?
Start early, take your time. The ones that end up not going great or very, very bumpy are people who come and say, I want to transact by the end of the year. There's actually a lot of preparation in a successful exit. And one thing we focus a lot on at ECG is, yeah, we can transact. We're brokers, we're bankers, we're CFOs, we can get you through the transaction. But the hard work is the transition work. And it's not just with the owner, it's with the business, it's with the marketplace. It's picking up all those rocks you don't want to look at and say, someone else is going to be running this one day and I got to deal with it. It's having those hard conversations you've been avoiding with your family members for years and now all of a sudden it matters. It's figuring out how you're going to live your lifestyle when you no longer have the business to run it through. So start early and plan and put the right advisors around you. And a lot of times like, well, who's the right advisors, right? Well, most of the time you have one advisor you lean on for a lot, whether it's your CPA or your corporate lawyer or your business consultant or your fill in the blank. That person will have a bench of people or access to people to bring in. And so, if once you trust them, their team will help you get through it. And it's not something to navigate alone. So we have a lot of business owners who they'll come in, they'll do evaluation, they'll go through an assessment, and they'll say, I got it. And we say, okay. And then they call us back within about a year and say, I don't got it. And we're like, it's okay. We know. because I wouldn't go into their business and try to do what they do either. And so it's actually a thing. It's not something to wing. And you need professionals who've gone through it multiple times. You also need professionals who are collaborative. If someone is trying to run it on their own, get more people involved. I'm not saying they're not the right person, but get more people involved, because you need people who specialize in your specific tax strategy. So your CPA, your specific financial outlook, your financial planner, right? Your specific team, your business consultant. So it's really important to have the right people surrounding you and that are in it all the time, because what we tell business owners is what we need them to do is run their company like they're never going to exit it. And we will tell you when we need to pull your attention away. Transactions and transitions are actually very distracting and they're very emotional. And so having a business owner live in that space indefinitely is very daunting and it's very difficult. So having the right professionals who can help them navigate when to pay attention and jump in and when to let the professionals do the work is important.
Got it. Okay, I'll keep going. Well, no, Mandi, over to you, because then I have other questions about just how you've kind of grown your business itself. So go ahead, Mandi. You'll be a good segue.
All right. Well, I want to go back to, you had mentioned family businesses.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've through this show and through talking to other people, even some of my coaching clients, what we've been learning, and I'm curious about your opinion on this, is there's a lot of family businesses right now that have been in the family for multiple generations. And now this last generation has no interest in the business. So I guess, what are you seeing out there right now in that theme? And so it's a two-parter. And if I'm running a business and I'm the third generation and my kid doesn't want to take over the business, what's next for me? Like, how do I, that's a whole different animal, right? So how do we handle that?
Yeah. So there's actually two prongs to this that we spend a lot of time in. So to the direct question and answer is yes, that is very much prevalent in the marketplace. So restating, reframing, we have generational businesses and all of a sudden we have a generation who no longer wants to run it. What does the family do, right? One option is they could sell it, right? But a lot of times you don't want to. It's a family business. You want to keep it in the family, and maybe the next generation does want it and they don't want to give up that hope and opportunity. So there's a couple of things you can do. One is you can hire help, get an outside interim CEO, CFO, COO, whatever the positions are, general manager, to come in and run it. And it takes time. Usually when families do this, the first one they hire doesn't last, because they figure out everything that they thought they wanted that they don't, and everything that they didn't know they want that they do. We usually say third time's a charm. If you get it on two, great. Another option you can do in that is align yourself with what's called a family office. A family office is a newer business entity out there. And they became an entity around in the 90s. The IRS started to recognize them as actual business entities. There's different versions of them. One of them is a single member family office where there's a group of people who run the corporate enterprise for the family, including their lives, and they operate like an enterprise on top of these different family entities. So you can bring in people to run it. And in the gap years of family members running different entities or the entity, you bring in somebody in that family office to do it. There's also entities that are called multifamily offices, where you have a group of people that runs multiple family businesses. So sometimes you can save on some synergies and some costs because there's an accounting system that runs these 5 or 6 or 12 different companies. And so you split the cost in that type of way. So depending on your size. So there's that way. One of the really cool things that's happening now in business schools across the country is they're starting programs called ETA, which is entrepreneurship through acquisition. And it's what's neat about it is the academic world is realizing that we're on this thing called the silver tsunami, which is all people aging out of their businesses. And a lot of them, there's a discrepancy. So I'm going to pause on ETA and tell you the other side of this and then bring it all together. So the other side of what's happening, particularly inside family office, is discrepancy and disparity between generations is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So when we were younger, I'm just going to assume we're all around the same age. Our parents were having kids in their 20s, right? So we're all somewhere between 25 and 30 years younger than our parents. The gap years of where the kids are now and what happened between us having kids is people started having kids in their 30s. So now you have that another 10 years of age discrepancy between someone wanting to exit and someone coming in. So you can imagine if we're 25, 30 years younger than our parents coming in, we have years to work under them. They're still very active in the business. We're pretty primed in our mid 40s, early 50s. If there's 10 more years space between there, you have to go backwards on who's stepping in. So a 30 to 35-year-old is not primed to run a family enterprise that a 45 or 50-year-old is. Now people are having kids around 40. So when that 40-year-old is ready to exit at 65 or 70, their kid is 25 or 30. So the age is going like this. So what do we do? Right? So there's these cool, now flipping back into ETA, programs going on, and some universities are actually putting them inside the curriculum, and some of them are auxiliary. And it's really cool because I get to work with these family enterprises attached to these universities, but they're teaching college students how to think like entrepreneurs and saying being a business owner can also mean you acquire a business. And so they're teaching them how to think like business owners and what it means to acquire a business and take on debt and take on risk. And that can become a really cool gap for these family enterprises that brings in young talent at an affordable rate. All the risk doesn't go to that talent. The family still has control of it, and it gives time to groom the next generation.
Ooh, it's like a matchmaker. Like, what if there, maybe there is, because that's not my space, but like, it's like a matchmaker of like the graduating student with the ETA expertise, and then the baby boomer parents like aging out, like a matchmaking service of those would be brilliant, right?
Yeah. And what's neat about it too is when you bring in these mid-tier managers now, the younger generation is more open to learning certain things from them. So you think about it, you know, the next generation who's aging out of businesses, many of them are just, they learned it through their street fight. A lot of them didn't go to grad school and B school, right? They learned it through grit and through risk and through struggle.
Mistakes, failures. Yeah.
And it's so interesting. So in that experience, so like our parents, if their parents had companies, they grew up going to work in the company on the weekends and in the summers. Our parents, if they owned companies, a lot of times didn't have us in those companies. They put us on soccer fields and dance classes and camps. So we weren't even learning like the business really as young adults. And that's only gotten more and more and more, right? And so a lot of times we have young adults who go to school for things like art and broadcasting and science and things that they're interested in, which is great. But that's not a paperclip manufacturer or a sheet metal company or a subcontractor. And so the skill set doesn't translate. And we have to figure out how to bridge the gap, because these kids who did all these cool things in college actually want to come in the family business, but they have no working knowledge, and no one will respect them. And we don't want that. And then no one will respect their parents for putting them in that position they shouldn't be put in. And so it's this really interesting dichotomy going on in the business place. And there's a solve. It's just going to have to be different than it was prior to.
Yeah. And as you're saying that, it's making me think of even more. It's just making me think of the not the problems, but the opportunities behind all of this. Like
so many.
Yeah.
Huge.
Right. Yeah. It's so huge.
It's really exciting.
Like, how do you handle somebody who's saying they're succession planning and they're giving the business to someone in their family, but they just won't step out of the way? They're almost like sabotaging not the new person, but they're not giving the family member the opportunity to lead.
Yeah. So this is something we deal with every day. So wonder if my clients are listening right now.
Sorry. She didn't prep me for that. That just came up. I promise.
I won't say any names. No, I mean, honestly, it comes through honest and transparent conversation. You know, what happens for us as business owners is people don't mean to. It's not happening through malicious intent, but they tell us what we want to hear. And even when they think they're being honest, they're not totally being honest. Partners do it too. And so what we do is we step in and we find out what's really going on, and then we mirror back what's happening. And, you know, I ask the people around them, I'm like, are you okay if I give direct feedback? Because that's the only way we even know if change is possible. And a lot of times business owners think they're doing the work or think that they're making the adjustments, and they are based on the information that's being given to them, but they're not getting the full information. So I have one particular client right now. And he'll tell me, he's like, I get feedback all the time, Andrea, and this is the feedback. And I was like, yes, and they're not saying this. And he's like, why? And I'm like, because you write their paycheck. They want the attaboy. They don't want to upset you, right? They don't want to be the person that makes you grumpy for a day.
Mm-hmm.
And so they don't know that they're not telling you. It's just natural human nature to pull back. I mean, my husband and I laugh all the time. We've been together for over 20 years, and there's still moments where you're like, how do I bring this up?
Mm-hmm.
How do I talk about this?
Yeah.
Right? Because
Yeah.
we're humans and we don't
Yeah.
want to upset each other. And we also have to be willing to be honest with ourselves about things that are uncomfortable. And that's in a marriage. So imagine employee-employer relationship.
Yeah.
It's way less intimate, you know?
Yeah.
So
With this type of business, it's very specialized. I'm curious as to what have you done that has worked the best in terms of growing your business? Because it's almost like it's a business where people are almost scared to talk about. They want to keep putting it off, but you need to kind of get to them early so you can plant the seed and then stay with them. So how have you been able to grow your business?
again, being really open and transparent. I mean, you can flip the narrative around succession planning and exit strategy really quick. And I think more and more it's going to be part of the conversation. Not to toot our own horn, just who we are. We're a little bit of disruptors, so that kind of works for us too. But everybody should be exit planning all the time. For all we know, no manifesting here, universe. I could walk out and get hit by a bus tonight, right?
Mm-hmm.
My company needs to be set up for success should something like that happen. It can't be so dependent on me that I can't sit here for an hour and have a podcast with you guys and they can't operate. And so when you start to change the narrative around it and it doesn't become the stigma or a pushing somebody out or an end of something, it becomes an actual continuation. It's a lot easier of a conversation. And so I have clients all the time. I'm cognizant and I ask if I can post, pictures and things about us on social media. And they're like, yeah, go for it. And then they're like, oh my God, everybody in my company called us up and said, what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
And they were able to have the narrative that said, yeah, there are business consultants. They're coming in because down the road, I'm 50. Down the road, you guys all need a plan. So you have somewhere to work when I retire.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually I'm going to retire. So we need to have a plan in place. So it's all about changing the stigma and the narrative around what it actually means.
I would imagine referral source. Sorry, Amani, just thought about this. I promise I'll zip it.
It's okay. It's okay. Go ahead.
It's in regards. It's in regards to business growth, though. So, like, I would imagine some referral sources would be wealth managers, family offices. Like, who are your referral sources aside from the obvious?
Exactly that. For the most part, it's other professional providers who touch exit and succession but don't live in it. And they need someone to come in and quarterback it. And then the other really, really big one is former clients who had a good experience, because a lot of times people are navigating transactions and not all the right people are at the table. And that's truly why we are a business. John Ovram, our founder and my partner, 20 years ago transacted one of his companies. So he was an Arthur Andersen CPA. He was a general contractor. He had all the different entities, family owned and operated. Decided he wanted to go do something else, wasn't sure what, and sold to his family members. And about a year in, the deal wasn't going right. And he basically lost it all. And he realized, he's like, I didn't understand my own deal. And he didn't have bad service providers at the table with him by all means, but they weren't all talking together. They weren't in concert. And he wasn't being transparent and vulnerable enough to say, I don't really know what you're talking about. And so he just did what all business owners do when they don't know what they're talking about. Yeah, that sounds good. Until it didn't. And he had a wife and 2 little kids at home and had to go home and say, I don't know what we're going to do. And so that really became the ethos of why he started our firm 20 years ago and why we help business owners in the manner and means in which we do.
Okay. What do you feel were some of the most valuable skills you learned while working, we'll say, in corporate America that translated the best over to your current kind of position, career, company?
Invest in your people with professional development. It's the number one thing that people will not pay for and want to spend time on, whether it's coaching, training, culture, but we're all in the people business. Whether you're that paper clip manufacturer or you're doing professional service, There's people involved and there's lives touched. And actually, that paperclip manufacturer is touching a lot more lives than the professional service firm, because it's touching the supply chain, it's touching the manufacturing plant, it's touching the consumers. And so if we don't understand EQ and we don't understand ourselves and we don't have self-awareness in how we show up and are intentional about it, we're going to do more harm in the marketplace by ignorance and lack of awareness than we are going to have impact. And I believe, again, here I go, but I believe we all have lights that are meant to shine, and they're meant to shine in different ways and in different depths and different reaches. But if we don't understand that and how our impact lands, it's actually harmful. And I use this example a lot all the time. There's this great book. Everyone's probably read it, and they have a kid version. It's called How Full Is Your Bucket? Mm-hmm. And it's all about how we all have dippers, right? And I worked in retail for a long time. And I used to tell, my staff would get so upset because customers would come in and they would be just not kind. They'd kind of treat you like you're a tool and, be a little bit disrespectful. Not all of them, but, once a day you'd have one. And what I explained to them was maybe they just got their fender hit in the parking lot. Maybe they're in here shopping for a funeral. Maybe they had to go put their dog down, or their kid just got sick, or their parent just got sick. We don't know, right? So our job is to be self-aware and figure out how to shine our light, even when the marketplace or the world or the situation you're in is asking you to respond and mirror back what they're doing. And so I cannot express. That's something corporate America does because it has the budget. I think it's what small business and mid-tier business should be doing because it has the people.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Great answer. We've come to the time in the show where we flip the script and let you ask both myself and Mandi any question you like. So who do you want to ask a question to first, and what is that question?
All right, Amani, I'll start with you.
Okay.
What is, and this has nothing to do with exit, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
What is the single most impactful moment you had with a client, and why?
Let's see here. Single most impactful moment. So I had a music business client where, through my educating them on royalties and what could be missing, I'm trying to remember the story. That's why I'm closing my eyes to picture it. They were able to sign up for this service called Sound Exchange and Song Trust. And then I stopped working with them, and they sent me a message maybe 4 or 5 months after working with them that they just got a check for like $13,000 based on our work together. And so that's the one that comes to mind right away.
That's awesome. Why was that significant to them?
Because they knew that they were missing money. They had no clue on how to get it. So the fact that I was able to teach them how to get it, first of all, they felt more empowered so they wouldn't miss it again. And they felt less of an imposter, and they felt less, I'm trying to find the right word. They had less despair because they knew something was wrong. And so when they figured it out and they learned why and how, that's why it was most impactful to them.
That's awesome. I hope they hear you say that. That's really cool.
It's awesome.
Okay, Mandi, what comes up for me is kind of along the same lines, but a little bit different. You're a coach, you work with lots of clients, and you get to watch them transform through the work that you do. I'm a big believer that you end up reflecting back on yourself, what you're projecting out. So in your line of work, where have you seen yourself transform? What does that look like, and what's something that stood out to you?
That is a good question. The first thing that came to mind is I feel like I've gotten a lot softer with myself through my coaching practice. I'm a driver. I'm an A, nothing's ever good enough. There's probably a little perfectionism in me. I want everything all the time. I won't stop till it's like all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. And I have learned through coaching is that my clients, they can stop at a point and be just awesome and celebrate that micro moment. And that's okay. Like, we still have work to do, but it's totally okay just to stop and be like, wow, like, look at how far I came. Like, look at everything I just did. And so I can just take a week off of that. I could take a week off of driving myself so hard. And I see that in my, if you're a client and you're hiring a coach, you're a performance-based person, right? So I do mirror that back to myself. And sometimes I'll get off the phone with a customer and I'll be like, well, yeah, why don't I, Mandi, great advice. Like, why don't you do it for yourself? And so I think I've just become more softer with myself as a result of that, for sure. Kinder,
That's awesome.
gentler, I guess you would say. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, and then I'll ask one final question, and then I'll let Mandy kind of take us home. But you went to San Diego State, right? That's where you went to school?
For undergrad.
Undergrad.
I did. Yeah.
Yes. So if we talk to Andrea right after the day after graduation from undergrad and give her advice based on everything that you've learned so far in life, and you've had some really fascinating experience, what advice would you give your younger self?
That's a great question.
It'd
It'd be fun to hear what my husband says too.
Let's ask him.
I would say it's not about proving your worth. It's about knowing your worth.
Yeah. I love the saying, know your worth and then add tax.
There you go.
There you go, Amani. That's good.
Mandi, over to you.
Well, I have a couple final questions here. So one is, you talk a lot about the Canopy Method. I'm just curious if you can explain what that is and how we should be thinking about this, because I would say at the beginning of the show, the way I thought about exit was, okay, you have this entity and you're going to exit and sell it for millions, right? But now at the end of the show, I'm like, no, this is just a part of retirement planning. This is a strategic way to think about how to not work anymore. It's not necessarily exit. So I'm just curious what the Canopy Method is.
What's the Canopy, right?
Yeah.
One of my brainchild. So I was always trying to explain what I did inside of organizations outside of just like what my title was. And I came up with this analogy. So I think there's two ways I describe kind of what happens in a company, and one's a canopy and one's the color purple, which I can share too. So, and if you think about, we all learn about a rainforest in elementary school. So it's something we all have a working knowledge of, right? So there's layers of the rainforest. There's the floor, which is dark and sticky and it doesn't see any sunlight. And there's animals that only come out at night and they eat certain things and they don't eat other things. And it's just this like wet, swampy place, right? And then the next layer up, it's still pretty dense, but there's like a little bit of sunlight that comes in. The food chain is different. The water system is different. It requires different elements to be that indigenous kind of place, right? And then there's the canopy layer, and there's a lot more sun, right? You can look up, you can see through the trees, you can see the light. It's still dark, right? You swing from vines, you don't walk on the floor or swim. So there's that layer. And then there's the treetops. And so if you're living as a toucan above the treetops, it just looks like green fluffiness, right? You don't even understand what the forest floor looks like. So if you told a frog that lives in the forest floor that there was this thing called sun and it was bright and there was these things called fluffy treetops, the frog would say, I don't know what you're talking about. If you told the toucan, you can no longer fly, you can only walk. And they have these claw feet, not webbed feet, right? So it doesn't work. And there's no sun. And you have to use your big, long beak to try to eat tiny insects, right? It doesn't work. And so if you think of a company like that, whether you're in the ivory towers and looking down at the treetops or you're on the factory floor, you have to have people that understand all the layers of a company. And so there's this mythical character out there that we call Tarzan, that understands all the layers of the rainforest and the jungle. And he speaks to every animal and he understands what their day-to-day life is. And he also can go into the human world and tell them about the jungle and tell the jungle people about the human world. And he can bring it together. And I think really good operators, really good leaders are Tarzans.
Nice. That's good. So it's almost like really sharpening your mindset, sharpening your skill set, so you can be a Tarzan. Like how are you being your best Tarzan?
How are you being your best Tarzan?
I love that. I love it. It's a good book. Could be your next book. You've spent almost an hour with us and your time is so valuable. How can we lift you up and give back to you in the same way you've just given to us in this last hour?
I really appreciate that question. I think, for anyone listening, if they know that they're considering exiting or scared of it or whatever, um, you have my LinkedIn, you have my email, you have my contact. Let us send you a book. Let us get on a call and just have a conversation. We are business owners helping business owners. Yes, we're service providers, and yes, we can help you in that space. But that's not always the call to action. Sometimes the call to action is just meeting you where you're at and saying, what do I even do next? And my call to action for anyone listening is just do something. Just don't do nothing, or call the people you know that can help you. There's lots of us out there. I've got lots of peers who are very good at this as well. And there's lots of work. So we're all busy and we can all get busier, and we're all here to help business owners. So that would be, truly knowing that people got something out of the time and can do something is probably the biggest impact we can have.
I love that. And everybody start thinking about your business strategically. Once a year, start thinking about how are you going to not be in your business anymore? Because it will happen. You're not going to be in your business forever.
Yeah. Great advice.
It's great.
All right. Well, we'll give you another virtual round of applause still there, and we're going to put you back in the green room momentarily. But it's such a fascinating topic, and so I'm so glad to meet you, because some of these things I had never thought of. The question about the business in the name was for a friend of mine, me. so that I just appreciate your wisdom and your insight. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Andrea. It's good to see you.
We'll put you right in the green room here. Okay, Mandi. Such a fascinating topic. Another great interview.
I could have gone another 2 hours.
I could have.
I know. So good.
Who do we have to look forward to next week?
Next week, we have Melissa Daniels, Senior Global Director for Hyatt Hotels. So we're talk hotels. And Melissa is one of the best networkers I've ever seen in action in my life. So we're going to talk a lot about networking because she's got some great tools.
Awesome. Well, thanks again to our guest today, Andrea. Make sure that you rate, review, and follow us on whatever platform you're watching or listening on. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube, and we appreciate your support. So we will see you again next week. I think we'll be both back in our home offices then. 4 p.m. on the East Coast, 1 p.m. on the West Coast, and 2 and 3 p.m. in between. With that, we say thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Adventures in Business. Don't forget to rate and review our podcast on the platform that you're currently listening it on. And don't forget to share it with your friends and anybody that might be as much of the business nerds as Amani and I are. See you next time for another captivating interview.